My name is Oliver O. Holder. You want my titles also? Oliver O. Holder, M.D., F.A.C.O.G., D.O.G., M. Oh, that's enough. Well, I always wanted to do something in the medical field. I was surrounded with sisters who were very educationally inclined, and they are both teachers in the city of New York, one in the high schools, one in an art school. And also, one of the other things that stimulated me very much is I had my second older sister, Valerie's mother. We all went to the same public school 68 on 128th Street between 7th and Lenox. And we lived around the corner on 7th Avenue, 2147 7th Avenue. And we came from there, where I was born, on 136th or 35th Street. I'm not sure that date. And my mother made it over to Harlem in time to get signed. But I think I had made it out of the well-known place before getting there. And so I grew up around Harlem Hospital. I grew up around Harlem. I can remember the days that we had the famous Banks restaurant, famous Banks story there, and they were one of the most successful businesses in Harlem. Had a few black grocery stores in Harlem, and one or two other things. But what we did have in Harlem was a great following in the church, all of the various denominations, Catholic, Episcopal, Baptist, all of them were very active. And Harlem on a weekend was a wonderful thing to see. Everybody got dressed up in their best, and they'd walk 7th Avenue from 125th to 155th, and look at the Moshun Dams Park over there. And we'd go on both sides, and slowly I came out of that growth of people that came off 133rd Street, where we originally came from, downtown Manhattan. Blacks were first in downtown Manhattan, and first lived in Central Park. Before it was Central Park, that was a place where the poor were living close to the little book that's in there and the water and so forth. The blacks lived in there. We came out of there, they pushed us out of there. And we went from there, first on the west side, 10th Avenue, 9th Avenue, 8th Avenue, about 3 or 4 blocks. And from there, the next shoot was uptown, and it started at 133rd Street between Lenox and 5th Avenue. And that went on over to the East River. Now Harlem spread west. So when we went from the east side of Harlem, then we went over to Lenox Avenue, from Lenox Avenue, 7th Avenue, and finally we climbed the hill across Mount March Park, got up on the hill. And the reason that we could celebrate that, one of the most exciting things we did as youngsters, we would leave 140th Street on the Riverside Drive by sleigh and come down all the way down to 127th Street and make a left turn and shoot out to St. Nicholas Avenue. And then in order to make it safe, the sanitation department would put ashes in the snow. When you turn to come off of that avenue, you'd run through the ashes. So I went from public school 157 to junior high school 24, Mount Morris Park Hospital. And from there I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, and first to the annex, because DeWitt was had over 14,000 students at that time, and they had no room for them. The old DeWitt Clinton was on 10th Avenue, around 40, I can't remember, still there, it says DeWitt Clinton. Became Harlem High School. Okay. I did undergraduate work. I started at City College, got a scholarship to go to, hold on, Clark in Atlanta, in Georgia. I went from Manhattan, and everybody thought I was crazy, including my family, because we used to see in the newspapers people who ended up being grown vegetables on trees when they were dead. You know. Anyway, I just say that I'm just coloring the interview a little bit. None of that was part of the facts. I went to Clark, and I think it was probably, in my mind's mind, the best thing that I did, because I got another side of looking at my own people. Mm-hmm. Because actually, if you were at that time living in the city of New York, you didn't think much of anybody coming from down south, because you didn't know better. But as we began to intermingle, it began to spread, and that helped. So I went from Clark to Howard Medical School. Now, when I got to Howard Medical School, I was about to go into the Army up until a week before it was time to go, and then I got a call from Howard that I was in the medical school. So I went to Howard Medical School from the Army Student Training Program, ASTP. At that time, the country had taken over all of the medical schools throughout the country. Nobody attended medical school that wasn't a part of the Army. If it was Harvard, I don't care where it is. If it was a medical or a dental, or, by the way, they did the same thing for a while for law school. Because they knew that they would need people to take over as they won the war in Europe. So that we were always told that we were being prepared for this, prepared for that. Fortunately for me, I was all set to go overseas when Germany gave up. The Japanese hadn't given up yet. We hadn't dropped our first bomb. But that was about over when that first bomb hit.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I finished medical school. Then there I was penniless. Didn't bring anything from, the only thing I had was a couple of good uniforms from the Army that I could wear, and penniless, and I got the chance to get that education. I took it in. And I went from there to Howard Medical School and finished medical school. Most of us got our internships at Harlem Hospital. Some got some in Chicago and a few. It was hard to find internships. And the other thing, it was worse, more difficult in getting residencies, because at this time they were starting residencies instead of associations, residencies. You no longer became a specialist by attending and working on cases. You lived in the hospital and attended the patients in the hospital, and at that time you became very close to the people you were working with. So I came along just about that time. And so while I was there, I couldn't get a residency. Harlem Hospital had a tremendous delivery schedule and gynecological schedule. And all of it was people like us. And none of us were working in that field. And they wouldn't let you in, so, something like that. Now, here you are, you finished medical school, you finished internship, you've done this, you're ready to do the residency. They're now telling you, wait 4 years and come back and do a residency. But that's how important it was for people to get that residency at Harlem Hospital. And we didn't have any chiefs of service at that time either. Only man that was a chief of service came back who was gassed in the war was Dr. Louis T. Wright. Was the only black person that was head of a service in the city of New York. Wow. That's how prejudiced it was in medicine.
Jane Cook Ray.
Jane?
Yeah.
I did a residency with her on cancer work. She did research in cancer under her and under her father at Harlem Hospital. Okay. I spent a year doing that.
Right in front of Harlem.
Right.
35th and Lenox.
Yes.
Right
After that, I started practicing, but meantime, I was always trying to get in OBGYN. Now, may I tell you the miracle of Harlem and the miracle of Dr. Oliver Holder?
Please do.
So there's the miracle. My wife was practicing, and I was practicing. We were practicing in the same office. She was an excellent doctor. In fact, I think she's a better doctor than I was. But the point is, we were both doing the same thing. And that meant that a large segment of people who had other conditions were not being attended by us because we were just general practitioners. She loved OBGYN. And we got together and I said, no need in both of us do is one of us can leave the office and the other one can go and do a residency. So I said, being the male, I'll stay and you go and do that. And she applied to 4 different places to try to get a residency in obstetrics and gynecology. No could get.
Wow.
So I told my wife, Geneva, one day, I said, you know what I'm going to do? She said, what's that? I said, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'll get dressed and I'm going to start I'm going to the first city hospital I can find as far away from here as possible. And I'm going to put applications in every city hospital in the whole city, a residency application for the specialty. Because I became convinced that Harlem Hospital, it would be impossible. And naturally, they didn't want it to, well, it was pure selfishness. They could have done it. They could have let 1 or 2 through. Anyway, make a long story short.
They only let white.
Right. So I got dressed and went on up to Fordham Hospital. And I went into the very imposing building at that time and facing the Grand Concourse. And I went on up the steps and went on in there and I went into the office where the doctors were hanging up and I asked for an application for residency in OBGYN. And I didn't know I was talking to the superintendent of the hospital, but I was. She was female. So she said, I tell you what, doctor. She said, you wait out there, don't go, because the chief of the service has not come in yet. And I have some news for him that I want him to hear, and maybe he can talk to you. So I stood there on maybe. So in came Dr. Brandt, very successful man, who lived at the Waldorf Astoria, and who originated a procedure known as the placental removal by his name, a system of removal. That's the afterbirth. Anyway, he came in that morning and he looked at me, he said good morning, and went on by, and he went in the office. Well, about 5 minutes later he came out, he said, your name is Dr. Oliver Holder? Yes. And you're looking for a residency in OBGYN? Yes. Fine. He said, where'd you go to school? So, yes. He says, fine. He said, I understand you started your practice already. I said, yes. Are you willing to give up your practice? I said, yes. He says, could you start tomorrow?
That's a miracle.
That is a miracle.
That's a miracle.
What hospital?
I said, my God, start tomorrow? This is only a 2-year value residency. It was like something that you picked, you know, everybody waited for a chance to jump on this. He had applicants for the job, but none of them were available for the next year. The people, they already lined up. So in I walked, and he said, well, the reason I'm going to offer it to you is because you've had experience as a general practitioner, and we do not keep that much attendance here. We need people who have advanced ideas and care in the field. And you've had an internship and our other people don't, so we need you. He said, can you do it? Can you do it? I said, yes, I can do it. He turned to the superintendent of the hospital and said, will you call him, let him get his measurements up? You're going to start tomorrow morning. So that was the history. And to me, he didn't know how he made me feel. I was a little giddy. I said, my God, first time I went to do this, and here I am. I considered it divine blessing. It wasn't anything else. Well, I think one of the parts of this ought to be very exciting was how I got the property I still have in New York at number 457 West 148th Street. I bought that property at a time when nobody was allowed to move in Harlem, in anywhere. It was after the war, and the government did not allow you to rent, or what do you call it? The public, because of the shortages, they prevented people from being dispossessed, removed, and all that. It was, so any of that property was there, and it was filled with people like myself, and the person I bought it from was a Caucasian of Jewish background. And the reason I got to buy it was because I was a doctor, and being a doctor, the court would allow me to ask room in the property to practice in. And he said, I can't do it. And he says, been there for 5 years. He said, so he sold it to me. So it was a nice purchase and a very inexpensive purchase, but a beautiful. So that's how I got the house and the practice.
Yes.
People of color owning a waterfront, which you're sitting on. Blacks. 50 years ago, there was nobody around with that. So when we came, I think there was one ball player that had a place that was near the water, something like that. It was in the Campanella or something like that.
Yeah, Campanella's one.
One that had a place.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't on the water, it was near.
It was in the area, but it wasn't on the water.
What we did own, we owned places on some of the big rivers where you could do fishing and boating, but not on seashore. So coming here, this is very close to the seashore. Well, this is part of the seashore. You only need to go about less than three-quarters of a mile, and you're right out in the sea there. You know the three names: Azure Rest, Sag Harbor Hills, and Nineveh. That's number 3. This is number 2. That's number 1. The first people here are right here.
This house right
Right there.
The Richards. The Richards.
Richards.
The last name.
They used to stay above the road. The first development of blacks were above the road.
Lighthouse Lane.
Lighthouse Lane. And where is that church that we're talking about over there?
You mean the little black church, St. David's, where she got married?
That's right.
Yeah, St. David.
Well, you know, this place had black captains who had their own ships for searching for whales. This is the port that everything coming from Europe first started here, Sag Harbor. You see these trees? Well, they're trees like this, but about maybe this place is full of trees and little rutty roads. And the beach was empty. The town had practically no place to park except the middle of the street. They didn't park on either side because they didn't have that much traffic. The bridge was here, and that connected to that other end over there where the more exclusive part of the place is. Now, it was a place that seemed to be forgotten. Everybody seemed to come out and go to East Hampton, West Hampton, Southampton, and over here to Bridgehampton, but they weren't coming to Sag Harbor because Sag Harbor was more or less a business place at that time, not a home. And the ships came in, and I understand from talking to people years ago, they actually had whales that they did the work in right out here in the water, that they'd catch whales out here. It's a whaling town. And all of the work they did, well, that was big business in Wales. All right, now when I came out here, whaling was not the business. It was well, no whites in it. Mostly white people out here. Property looked terrible. It looked poor. And they were living on a different basis. It wasn't East Hampton, it sure wasn't Southampton. My God, none of the Hamptons. This is I forget your land. But when we came here, nobody gave a damn about this. Things were bad and just laying here. They have the golf courses still over there that nobody uses. And all that land going towards the Hamptons, there. Only the big farms were there, no homes. Now you have a whole area of homes in there. People didn't have any problems with parking. We park in the middle of the street. You didn't have to park up at, you park in the middle of the street. And you might be number 1 car out there for a while before you see anything. It was that slow at times. But the view was terrific. Some of the people said good morning or something like that, some did not. We had our mixture of who was glad to see you and who wasn't. And there was a Jewish guy and his wife who was running everything around here. And actually, this property belonged to Thomas Alva Edison, owned a part of this land. And all that was turned over because no way in the world they could have done anything with it. With so much of it. So that's the way it was. When I came and came to the top of the hill and looked down here and saw this view, I said, "Oh Lord, have mercy." I said to my sister, I said, "Iris, if there's anything down there that's available, I want a part of it. I don't know how I'm gonna pay for it because I don't have nothing I'll work to pay for it." So I bought it, and my first down payment on this property was $15. The first property bought on the waterfront down there was bought by these people right here. Richards.
And that would have been in the early 50s, maybe?
Yeah. When did I come out here? Well, I finished medical school what year?
46.
Yeah, that was about 40. Well, they were here since about 40. I think they were here for about 44, 45, something like that. It wasn't something they talked about. People were kind of, they didn't always want everybody to know what was happening around here. I got that feeling. You happen to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, come and look at Sag Harbor, otherwise you didn't hear about Sag Harbor. And then most people in Manhattan, including yourself, didn't want to come 115 miles.
It's quite a haul.
And at that time,
And at that time, they had no Long Island Expressway. Used to take us 3 hours and a half to come out here. Yeah. But I said as soon as I saw it, I said, 3 hours, no, I want a piece of that.